What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So if you caught the last video on this car, you'd know that it's leaking gas out of the fuel tank over on the driver's side. So I gotta change the tank, and I was thinking, while I'm in here, I might as well get a 255 Warlboro pump, throw that in there, and that way it has the fuel system to support any mods I do to the motor. So while I'm in there, you gotta do that, and I need to get a gauge on the car, that way I can set the fuel pressure correctly. So to do that, you need the Schrader valve on your fuel line up front, which my car doesn't have the Schrader valve. So I ordered fuel lines for it, so I gotta change the front fuel lines up top here. Not the rails, just the lines that come from like underneath the alternator to like the lower intake, basically. I gotta change those two lines, that way I can get the Schrader valve. I may only have to change the one that will get the Schrader valve. I don't think I actually have to change both of them, but I might as well while I'm in here. So that way I can change that, and I need an adjustable fuel pressure regulator. So today, my main goal for today is to pull the intake and change the fuel pressure regulator and change the lines, put it back together here, start it up, make sure the regulator is good and I can adjust it, make sure the gauge works good. That way I know that I've got good stuff up front and this is all done. That way maybe tomorrow I can take the tank out of the car and start replacing a bunch of stuff back there. So let's get right into it. So I've never taken the intake off before, so I'm going to be learning as I go with all this stuff right here. So for starters, I'm going to start with what I know how to do. Take out the battery, the air intake pipe, and the IAC, unplug the TPS, and just start unhooking vacuum lines and stuff like that. And take this plaque cover off, and then once I'm about ready, then I'll take out the bolts up top. So I actually forgot about it, so I connected the battery again and just plugged in all the stuff up top. I'm not going to worry about the air intake pipe because it doesn't matter. But anyways, I forgot about it, but I need to pull the fuse for the fuel pump and start the car and let the car die. That way all the fuel gets out of the lines and there's not a bunch of pressure in the lines here trying to take off the fuel lines, because A, there's a 93 Cobra right there, and B, you don't want to have fuel in the lines, and you definitely don't want a lot of pressure. So I'm going to start the car and pop that fuse. Scratch that, the fuel pump relay is actually under the seat. It's not in the fuse panel. Had it running, unplugged that switch, the car died. So now there should be no fuel pressure or fuel in the lines, and we'll be good to start on hooking everything up here. Okay, so I believe I'm ready to unbolt it. Got the IAC unplugged, TPS is unplugged, vacuum and EGR, all of this stuff's unplugged. Throttle cable's unhooked, unbolted the bracket. It's just dangling right there. Got the salt and pepper shakers free. I got the fuel pressure regulator vacuum unhooked. And I believe that's everything. So now I can start taking out the bolts. Once I get the bolts all out, I'll tilt it over and unhook all the vacuum lines, and we should be good to pop that right off. I got the intake off of here. I'm just cleaning up some stuff now. You can see I made a cardboard template for exactly where all the bolts go there. Down here, here's the intake. And if you caught the last video on this car, you'd know that I converted it to mass air. So I had to cap off the vacuum line going to the map sensor there. And that was right here. So instead of just having the capped off line, now I just capped off the port on the intake. Much cleaner. I'm going to clean up the intake real well before I put it back on. But the next thing to do after I just, find a home and clean up all this stuff, the next thing would be to change out these fuel lines. Not sure if I'm doing both lines or just the one that needs to be changed so it has a Schrader valve. But depends on how easy it is to change the line. Then I'll decide if I want to do them both or just the one. I got one of the fuel lines disconnected right there. I just used some PV Blaster on the connection, and then I used this little tool, disconnect tool, plugged that in there, twisted it around quite a bit, and then I was able to pull this fuel line apart. It wasn't too bad, but it wasn't super easy either, but it came right apart though. So now I got to do the next one, but it's so tight in here that it'd be easiest to remove the distributor, but I'm not doing that. So I'm just going to pull off the cap and the wires here. I got a diagram so I know how everything goes back. So I already disconnected the little tabs here. I just got to unplug the wires, pop that out, and then I'll show you how to disconnect the fuel line. I forgot to video it, but this one came right out just like the other one, but it was much easier. Just hit it with the PV blaster, slip the little tool in there, wiggle it around. I even tapped it beforehand with a breaker bar because it's metal, just to try to loosen up any rust or corrosion that might be in the connection there. But tapped it like that, twisted the little tool in there, spun it around a few times, wiggled it and pulled it back, and it just slid right out. So also, I kept a dirty rag underneath the fuel lines when I did it, because this line right here did leak out some gas. And if you do have a nice paint job on your lower intake, which I don't, you might want to keep the gas off of it. Just my 2 cents on that. But so now I'm gonna go down to the bottom. Might have to jack up the car to do those. I'm not sure if I can reach them from the top, and get those 2 disconnected. That way I can replace these fuel lines. Upgrades, people, upgrades. So here's the original one, there's the new one. The only difference is the new one has a Schrader valve, the old one doesn't. So, plus this looks way better anyways, which serves no purpose other than cosmetics. But I'm gonna toss that in here in a minute, get everything lined up, bolted down, and put a little, just a touch of motor oil on the connections. That way I don't put the O-rings on dry and everything slides in like it should, because you don't want to put them on dry. But I'm just going to use motor oil on mine. When I researched it, that's fine, perfectly fine. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm about to toss these in. I got the new lines mocked up, and honestly, I'm not too happy with the way they fit. I feel like they're crooked, at least the one is, this one here, compared to the original one. It doesn't line up. Like, the top's fine, but down at the bottom, it's like trying to shoot out underneath the motor instead of, like, you can see the one, but the other one's up under the head. It's not where it should be at. So once I hook up the top down here, I might have to bend that line a little bit at the bottom. That way I can get it halfway decent to lined up with the other line down there to make sure everything's good. But overall, it ain't terrible. It's just that one line, it's kind of crooked. New lines are installed. Adjustable fuel pressure regulator installed. Now I'm working on the gauge here. I got this little adapter from LMR, and I got this Aeromotive fuel pressure gauge, and I need this adapter to adapt this gauge to that fuel line. So I'm working on that, and I want to make sure there's no leaks. So got some gas oil, however you say that, universal thread tape for fuel lines and stuff like that with fuel. So shouldn't have any leaks here. I'm gonna put like 2 or 3 wraps of thread tape over these, thread that in, then thread that into that, and then I should be good to hook up the battery and then prime it to check, see if there's any leaks. I've got the fuel lines hooked up, I've got an adjustable regulator hooked up, and then I've got the Aeromotive gauge hooked up. So now I'm gonna hook up the battery. I've already plugged in the relay underneath the seat, so now I'm gonna hook up the battery, and then I'm gonna prime the pump and check for leaks. So we got no leaks on the fuel system. Everything is now cleaned up and ready for the intake to go back on. Cleaned up the mating surface, cleaned up that mating surface. So this old gasket isn't damaged, so I'm just gonna reuse it instead of replacing it. So I'm gonna throw this intake up here. I'll set a rag down over the valve cover just to not scuff up the intake or the valve cover, but throw the intake up here, hook up the vacuum lines, and bolt it down. I had the car up and running last night, adjusted the fuel pressure on the regulator. It adjusted right there on the gauge. Everything's good up here, no leaks. So today, I'm gonna drop this fuel tank. So to start, I'm gonna get the car started up. I'm gonna pop that relay under the seat again. That way it gets the pressure out of the lines, and then I'll be able to start dropping that fuel tank. So I've never dropped the fuel tank in this thing before, but if I'm not mistaken, it's just the 3 bolts right here at the fuel door. There's 4 up underneath the car on the seal for the filler neck tube, and then there's 1 on the fuel tank for the filler neck tube, and then there's the 2 bolts for the fuel tank straps, and then I know there's 1 connection down there, electrical connection. 2 fuel lines have to be disconnected, and there's, I think it's the vent valve for the tank, the vent the tank. I believe that has to be disconnected. And if I'm not mistaken, that's everything. But it's going to be a little bit of a learning experience, like I said up there, because I've never done this before. All right, I'm about ready to drop the tank. You can see I got the chemical guy's bucket supporting it there. and I got the jack over here. I'm about to loosen up the 2 fuel tank straps. So I got the 2 fuel lines back there unhooked. All the bolts for the filler neck are removed. That plug connections unplugged. All that should be left is the vent for the fuel tank, which I'll be able to get that once I'm lowering it. So I'm going to loosen up these 2 fuel tank straps, get them out, and then I'll pop out the bucket and lower the jack so I can maneuver this filler neck out. Got the tank out, old son. That's what I'm talking about. Look how crusty she is. She rusty. Oh, she's got about half a tank of gas. The gauge was reading quarter, so I figured it'd be a perfect time to pull it, especially with the leak there. And, well, she's got about half a tank here. Half a tank of 93. That's like $40 in today's economy. So for the past like 2 hours, I've been up underneath the car cleaning it, wire wheeling, rust, wire brushing stuff, just trying to clean up stuff. So it looks about halfway decent now. Most of the rust back here is all gone or grinded down at least. So now I'm going to use primer, prime everything that needs it. This definitely does in here. And there's even a little rust inside of the frame rails here. But I was able to wire brush the main areas good. And it was just a little bit of surface rust in areas. It wasn't bad at all. So I'm just going to prime all this stuff and probably shoot a little black paint over it. Day 3. Today's the day I need to get the car back together. Last night I repainted everything. Next thing to do is clean up this old harness and the original fuel lines here. So I'm going to get these off of here. Time to do some wiring. Just finished building the pump. So I got a brand new pump hanger from LMR. I got the 255 Warlboro pump with the full install kit. And I had to go to Harbor Freight. That way I could get those clamps right there. Because the clamp that came in the kit, the 2 clamps for the line right here, they just sucked. I ain't gonna lie, they was just junk. So I went out and bought the OG normal style clamps and put it all together, and she's ready to drop in the tank, son. Brand new fuel tank, ready to be tossed in. Everything you see here, brand new. I cleaned up the original cover, repainted it, just light coats with the sim, trim black. Came out pretty nice, not bad. So I'm gonna get ready to toss this tank in. Excuse me, now the tank is ready to be tossed back in. Got the padding on here, fuel lines hooked up, and hooked up the wiring harness here. I took the wiring harness apart, cleaned everything real good, and put it back together with some harness tape around the edges, and just made it look real nice. That way it was nice and clean under there. And then I just threw the padding right on top. So now this is ready. I just gotta put the new gaskets over here for the filler neck. Everything's repainted up under here. Brand new fuel tank straps from LMR. These got the studs, so they should be easier to install the tank. And repainted the filler neck and put a new filler neck floor pan seal up there. Everything for the tank, as you've seen, it's all getting replaced. So gonna have a fresh fuel system in this thing. Alright folks, after a couple hours of struggling and working hard, I was able to get the fuel tank in, got everything hooked up. So down here on the return line, I used the original, well, I believe it is the original clip. I'm not sure the name of the clip, but I used the old original one. So that's all I had. I don't have a replacement. Now I had a replacement clip for, I believe it was the return on the fuel pump. I had a replacement kit that came with, or I had a replacement clip that came with the kit where down there where the fuel line hooked up to the hard line, I didn't have a replacement for that. So tomorrow morning, I'm going to go to the parts store and try to find one. If not, I'm going to roll the dice until LMR brings me a new one. But here in a couple minutes, I'm going to try to do a first startup, make sure there's no leaks. Then I'll really find out if I'll be able to drive the car tomorrow, or I need to wait until I get a clip, or see if I can get one at the parts store. I'm definitely going to try to get one in the morning, though. I'm going to get new fuel filter clips as well. Those ones are good. I'm not stressed about those at all because they've been replaced recently. But they could be replaced as well because it's more of a one-time use type of thing. So, now, looking clean, right? So now I'm about to fill it up with, I got 4 gallons of 93 pump gas. So I'm about to fill the tank up with some gas and see if we got a fuel pump. Got everything hooked up. Now I'm gonna see if the fuel pump actually kicks on. Out fuel, man, literally. So once I dry this up, I'm gonna crawl up under and see where it's coming from. Since my car is all apart right now, Dad let me drive his Mustang. I'm sick as a dog right now, but I need to get this thing fixed. So I already dropped the tank. I got a bunch of parts in from LMR. So new fuel line clips and a brand new return line. And I went to the parts store and got these O-rings for fuel lines. That way I can replace the one on the hard line over there. So I'm gonna get the old return line off and swap this one in. Hopefully this one seals up. And once this is all put together, I'll put the tank back up there and check our work. So here's a new O-ring. You can see the new one, old one. They're the exact same size, exact same thicknesses. So this, I'm gonna swap this out and then I'll be able to hook up the new line. So I think I found out the issue. Here's the original line here, and I'll attach a picture, but this piece of the line, which goes down in here, about like that, it's a little crooked. That piece, which you can see how it's there, it goes in there and it holds one of the O-rings. So there should be 2 O-rings here and there. That way it seals the line, right? Where this black plastic piece, it'll fall out, it stayed on the hard line because it was so rusted to it, and it kind of just like broke. So I'm thinking that was the issue because I pulled this off the hard line. I had to use pliers to get it off. She's alive. No leaks, but fuel pressure just keeps going up and down. I set it for like 32 and like 38 to 40, but it keeps shaking up and down. I'm not sure about that. I've cycled the ignition several times to try to make sure there's no air in the lines, but I think here in a little bit I'm just going to take it for a drive and see what happens. But yeah, there's either air in the lines or I might have to replace that new regulator. That's what I'm thinking, so we'll find out. What do you say? Time to put the meaty big ones on there? I don't know why, but I thought for some reason these 275s would be massive compared to those 255s. It's really not that much of a difference. So just now on the tank, I had to ever so slightly just bend the lip up right there. That way I could have some clearance from my exhaust pipe because I don't want this touching. And like the way the new tank was made, it wasn't to the exact factory curvature. So it was basically touching my exhaust pipe, and that's not a good combination of heat and gas right there. So I just folded it up, and the seam where the tank's like put together is farther back, so should be good. And about to toss on the meaty big ones. Let's take it for a spin. Straight out of Georgia boys right here. Alright guys, I got the car running good. I'm going to check the fuel pressure here in a minute, but I've driven it all the way up to like 5,600 RPM. Runs smooth, everything's good. So it's running great. I just gave it a full tank of premium, and about to take it on a little rip. Perfect. Trip 2 in the books. It's running great. I've been meaning to get footage for y'all. I just keep forgetting, so bear with me. But I'll try to get some footage before the end of the week. All right, so now that I got the car running right, it's time that I attempt a paint correction. In my entire ownership, I've never done this. I've only done wax, buff, that kind of thing. But you can see there's a haze in the paint. And it's always pissed me off because I don't like the way it looks. So I got the wool pad on the buffer here. And I got this Meguiar's fine cut. And I'm going to do a cut. Then I'm going to do a polish. And then a buff. At least that's the plan here. So I got the Meguiar's, the cut. Then I got their polish. And then I got their Carnauba wax stuff. So I'm going to attempt to do this. I'm going to try it up here somewhere. Try it somewhere on the car with the cut to make sure it doesn't damage the paint first. And then hit the roof and hopefully get that haze out because I don't like that. I need to get that out of there. So I'm going to see how this turns out and I'll give you all a shout once this is done. Okay, so to start, I used the terry cloth pad with the fine cut. Now I'm going in with the wool pad and the polish. You can see right here, the lighting's pretty bad, but you can see where I boxed out the spot with the tape and I went to the polish and all that haze came right out. Just finished the polish. A lot of the haze came out of the paint. Turned out real nice. It's never looked this good since I've owned it. So everything's been polished now. So now I got the microfiber pad on the buffer and the wax from Meguiar's, and I'm gonna buff the whole car now. Just finished it up. Mind you, this is like 20-plus-year-old paint. It's not original. It's been resprayed once, but it's pretty old, so it's not perfect. But most of the haze in the roof and the deck lid and tops of the fenders all came out for the most part. It's very faint though. So cleaned up a lot. I got a lot of marks out. Got a few scratches out. Looks great. Much better than before. That's all I need. I gotta buff the decal. So Meguiar's cleaner wax. Don't do it in the sun. Do it when the hood's cool, like in a garage or something like that, or when it's cool outside. Buff it. Don't let it dry to the hood. Rub it in. Rub it right out with the microfiber. It'll buff this hood decal out so it looks good and it stays moist and doesn't crack out. So I'm gonna pull it out and shine up the wheels and tires. Brand new tires, front and rear, and I've never shined them up because I was either working on the motor or the fuel system, and the car hasn't been cleaned since I put them on. So it's really the day to really see how this thing looks. Excuse my French, but hot damn. Ain't that crazy what a paint correction can do? Oh my god, bruh. Paint correction and tire shine, that's all she needed. Ain't never looked this good, man. Ain't never looked this good. Next thing I gotta do is clean out the interior from when I mass air swapped it. I ain't done that yet neither. Whoa. Ain't never looked this good. I just buffed the hood decal. Shout out to the gentleman last year at a car show who taught me that. It's a pretty slick trick. I'm out here at my 16th birthday party and my brother's 18th and graduation party, and just thinking, I got some good advice. Nothing's perfect and there's always gonna be issues and there's always things to fix, but just be grateful for what you got, And thinking about this car, like it's got its own issues and more things it needs, but enjoy it. That's what it's here for, Just because there's always something else you gotta do doesn't mean it's not good enough, I love this car. Every time I get behind the wheel, it just makes me happy, So that's why I do what I do and always fix it, because it fixes me, So just thought I'd share that. Car looks great out here. Alright guys, well that's a wrap. I'm sorry I ain't getting no driving videos, but next video, depending on what I'm doing, I'm surely gonna drive it in the next couple days or week, whatever. especially with it being this clean. Just take it out to town and hang out with my buddies. So I'll get some driving clips here soon at some point. So count on the next video, or at least the next 2 videos. One of them's gonna have some good driving clips. But anyways, the car's doing good. Thank y'all for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.